Today, carrying on from our last lecture, we have discussed local variable, instance variable, and static variable. We'll continue this and discuss instance variable and instance method and static method. Suppose I declare a method, say show. Now, for any method in Java, you need a return type, that is void in this case. Then you have the name of the method, and then we have the parameter list. Now in this case, void is the return type, show is the name of the method, and there is no parameter. However, we can define a method with a parameter, say show with an int value. And similarly, in case you have a return type, then you need to put down a return statement from within the method, returning a value which is compatible with the return type we have declared in the definition. So you can return any value which is up to int, as we have declared that the return type from this method is int. So to call this method, we'll create an object, and then I can say int b is equal to v dot show, and we can pass any value, say 5, and more appropriate will be that I return this value itself that we pass as a parameter. So I'm passing 5, so this method will return me 5, and I can print the value that I have got from call to show. So this save. So I have the output 5. So this is the way to declare a method in Java. You have a return type, you have a definition, and you have a parameter list. So this is the signature of any method. So now we'll just see how we can use instance variables and static variables within methods. So I'll just take an instance variable, say x, and have a simple method show that prints the value of x. Simple enough. Yeah. So I'll make an object v, set x to 30, then call show. I'll make another object, say vv, set x to 40, and then call vv dot show. Now what is the output that we expect here and here? So what we are exactly doing is, I'm making an object of class variables. Now since this is an instance method, so as we had declared in the earlier lecture that instance variable and instance method, they can only be operated through objects. So this means in order to call this show, you need an object, and that we have already created v and vv in this case. So you can only call show through this object and not directly. We cannot directly write just show. So what is the output we get from this x? So as expected, we can expect a 30 here, a 40 here. Now let us see what the output comes to be. Now this is exactly what we are trying to guess out the value here. But the only problem that might come in this case is that we say that this method show is printing x. And as we have said that instance variable cannot be printed without the reference to any object. So we haven't put down any object here, whether this x belongs to v or this x belongs to vv. So this we haven't mentioned in the call to this, in the call to the printing of this x. But what exactly happens is, whenever we refer to any instance variable within an instance method, the system knows that it is going to call show through an object, because this is an instance method. So instance method always will be called through a object, say v. So this x, it will print of the object that you use to call this show. So what it does exactly is, it puts a call to X through this. So we write X, the system interprets this as this dot X. Now this is the reference to the current object. Now when we say v dot show, now this refers to the v object. When you say, now here I'll just return this refers to v here, and in this case we have this referring to vv. So when you call this show with an object v, system automatically changes this with the v and prints you v dot x, which is 30. When you say vv dot show, system changes this with vv and you get an output which is vv dot x, and that's what we had expected, 30 and 40. So even I can also write this instead of simply writing x and run this program. I get the same output as we had got earlier, because this is what exactly runs instead of this. So we are not crossing the definition that we had given earlier, that you cannot print any instance variable without reference to any object. So we are in fact referring to an object here, and that object is the current object through which we are calling the show method. So if you call show through v, we get v dot x. In case you are calling show through vv, you get vv dot x. Now this creates a problem in case we make this variable as we make this method as static. Now as soon as I make this method as static, this means I can call this method without any object. So I cannot refer to any object with this in any static method. So this keyword cannot be used within any static method, and we have a problem here because x in this case is not used in reference to any object. We have no object in picture when we are calling show, so we cannot directly refer to instance variables within any static method. So the rule is you cannot refer to instance variables in any static method. You need to explicitly mention the object here, and then you can write x. So as I have no object in picture that I can use to print x, I can create an object on the fly. I can say new variables dot x. So what I have done is I have created a new object here itself, and then I am printing the x that gets memory due to the creation of this object. So any new object has a value which starts from 10, so I'll get a printout of 10 in both cases. Even though v dot x is 30, we call show, we have vv dot x equal to 40, then we say vv dot show, because in this method show we have no reference to object v or vv, we have an altogether new object and we are printing x. So in both calls, whether we say show or we say vv dot show, we have an output of 10. So here it is. For v dot show or simple show, we have a new object for variables class, and x for that is 10. And for vv dot show, the same thing happens. We create another object for variables class and we have x of that. So this is the way you create a object on the fly. So this is one use object. You can only use this once because we have no reference for this object, so we cannot refer to this again. So we can use this object only once and then it is ready for garbage collection. Another option is that I make this variable static, and then we have no problem referring to this variable within this method, because this variable comes into picture even when there is no object. So even if I have no object in picture, I can still call show because x already comes into picture as soon as I run this class. So I'll get an output here 10, and then I can change, I can even create an object and change this x through this and then call show through an object. So this here is expected to give me an output of 10, and as an object changes x, I have an output of 40 here. So we have 10 and 40. So we have seen that instance method can refer to instance variable. Then we have seen that static method cannot refer to a instance variable without explicitly mentioning the object. Then we have seen the case where static method can refer to a static variable, and the last case is when we have a instance method and it is referring to a static object, a static variable. So we have a method show which is printing a value x, which is a static variable. Now we are very clear that this method show has to be called through an object, whereas this x comes into picture before any object is even created. So this means this x is in picture before you can call this show. So everything is fine and we get the output as we are expecting. So I create an object v and I call show through this v, because v is an instance method. I cannot directly call this method, I have to call through an object. Just move this to be more clear. So I have a simple object v, I call show, and since show is printing x, which is initially set to 10, I get an output of 10 here. I create another object, I set x to 40, and then I call show. Since I have changed this x to 40 now through this object vv, I will get an output of 40 here. So I'll just summarize what we have done. First we had an instance method referring to an instance variable, which it can do through this keyword, where this refers to the current object. So through this we have manipulated the use of the variable without referring to the object. Then we have instance method referring to static variable. Perfectly okay as above, because method is called after the variable is already in picture. So there is no problem in calling a static variable within a instance method. Then we have a static method referring to a instance variable. Now this is where the problem comes, as the static method can be called without any object. So we might not have any object into picture, so we cannot refer to any instance variable within a static method. So cannot directly refer instance variables within static methods. We have to explicitly mention the object and then the variable. The last case we have is a static method referring to static variables, and this is perfectly okay. Since static method is referring to a variable which is already static, so both are in picture before the method is called, so this is perfectly okay. So I hope this clears the concept of static variables, instance variables, static methods, and instance methods.